a busy morning, but I wanted to offer some statements and explanation about the City of Superior coronavirus relief package. This is something that we announced yesterday. We are formally announcing today, and we are presenting parts of this proposal to the Superior City Council on this coming Tuesday's meeting. But it's a complicated package with a number of funding sources, so I want to make sure that we are all clear on what exactly we are proposing and the timeline for achieving each of these proposals. I have with me Jason Sirk. He's our Port and Planning Director. His office is overseeing the construction of a lot of the elements, particularly for small business. This has been a collaborative effort among a number of people. I worked closely with several city councilors, chief among them Councilor Keith Kern, who wanted to provide some support for a lot of the businesses like his that have been shut down over the course of the governor's emergency order. But it was also a recognition that even if a business hasn't been shut down or fully shut down, that many, many businesses are suffering in this economy due to the effects of this pandemic. But on top of that, I felt very strongly that we needed to serve everybody in this community. And to that end, a lot of our representatives in the federal government, especially United States Senator Tammy Baldwin, fought very hard for the coronavirus relief bill, which provided funding via a community development block grant for municipalities like the City of Superior. After we discovered that our allocation was going to be about $417,000, we decided that money should go directly to serving people and organizations that are either directly affected and impacted by this crisis or those that are helping people that are affected by the crisis. So those are the two parts. We want to look to help people directly with city money, and we want to put federal money to work for the people that are most vulnerable and most in need during this crisis. And so that's what this package is going to do. So I'll take you through the details here. You have a lot of this in the press release, but just so we're clear, the CDBG grant will be allocated in three different parts. The first and the largest will be $250,000 in funding for a rental assistance program for low to moderate income families that should serve about 50 to 75 families based on the federal guidelines to either catch up on back rent or to pay future rent over the next couple of weeks and months as people recover from this crisis. That program will be administered by, help me with the acronym, Jason. Northwest Wisconsin Community Services. Northwest Wisconsin Community Services Agency. They will create and implement the rental assistance program. We will fund it with CDBG funds. We will also use it to allocate up to $50,000 for housing populations living in homelessness that have had to be isolated because of potential exposure to coronavirus or COVID-19. It is very difficult for people that are living in transient housing that don't have permanent placement if a doctor or a public health professional tells them that they must be isolated in a single spot. That is usually required extended hotel stays. As you know, the quarantine period is at least 2 weeks for many of the victims of this virus. And so we will allocate up to $50,000 to make sure that that is paid for. And finally, we will use the remaining $117,000 of CDBG funds for nonprofits in the area that are CDBG eligible that are reacting to the crisis. Now, this is specifically undefined because we want to give nonprofits throughout the city the chance to make their case why they have a special need caused by the crisis or what they have done to meet the crisis. We want to be able to support them financially so that they can continue to do the very good work that they are already doing in this community. We don't want them to be impacted any more than they absolutely have to be. The CDBG proposals will not be coming to the council on Tuesday. We expect to bring them in May, June at the latest. So that will be a future decision by the council. What will come on Tuesday are two very key resolutions. The first will be the Superior Economic Relief Fund, and that is a two-part program funded from two different sources. The first is to take our small business grant program to allocate. This is what a lot of Councilor Kern worked on, is to ask that we take almost half, more than half of our small business grant program, $80,000, and allocate it to a micro grant program that will offer grants of up to $1,500 to businesses directly impacted by the coronavirus crisis or the governor's emergency order. Businesses will make the case for how they were impacted. We will ask them to show examples of what those economic impacts are. The more detailed, the better. This is a finite amount of money. But it will be balanced by another initiative in the same within the same program to waive fees for those businesses that pay for licenses for the sale of alcohol, tobacco, or the gaming licenses. These can be hundreds of dollars for businesses that over these past few weeks have been shut down. Think of bars that don't have a liquor store attached or aren't part of a larger restaurant. These fees can be prohibitively expensive, particularly for a business that has little to no income during this time. One of the catches here is that if your fees are waived, that will count towards the total $1,500 cap. It will be a max grant of $1,500 to any one business, regardless of which source it comes from. And the purpose of that is so that we can maximize the help we are giving to as many businesses as possible within the City of Superior. We recognize that this will not save a business that is fatally struggling in this environment. We recognize that it doesn't make up for the loss of business. Part of the reason we settle on this number is, of course, to stretch it as far as possible, but there are a number of businesses that just have basic bills, lease payments, rent payments, utilities that they literally just need to keep the lights on during a time when there's no income coming in. And so we're going to try and help out with that where we can. Another catch this program, if you apply for this program, you will not be eligible for further small business grant awards for 12 months. So if you were hoping to do a big project, we would ask businesses to not apply for this, consider applying for the Small Business Grant Program, and we can, under much more strict conditions, offer larger grants for that. The other ordinance that we will be presenting will be to waive all late fees for city utilities in the City of Superior for the remainder of 2020. These are stormwater, wastewater, and landfill fees. If those are not paid in a timely fashion, a late fee is assessed. We are going to waive those until their final due date. We waive them permanently for the rest of the year, but those fees that are not paid by the final due date will still incur a penalty at the end of the year. The purpose of this is to allow residents to pay when they are able, when it best suits their financial condition in 2020. This is all residents, all property owners within the City of Superior, including businesses. This is a blanket waiver of those fees. This is a significant expense for the City of Superior. Our finance director, Ashley Putz, projects this to cost us upwards of $100,000 in revenue. So this will have significant impacts on the finances of the City of Superior. Backing up, if we were to waive all license fees, we don't know how much we will end up waiving, but the license fee part of the relief fund program would end up costing us upwards of $70,000 in revenue. That varies year to year, but it could also be a very substantial expense for the city. Those are the proposals. I just want to also again thank the people that worked on this: Senator Baldwin, Jason Sirk, and Allison in the planning department, Councilor Keith Kern, and all of the city councilors that I spoke to about this. I've had a chance to speak with almost all city councilors and the councilor-elect about this package. I know there are going to be a number of questions from councilors. They may not be perfectly prepared to pass this on Tuesday, but I hope that ultimately we will have unanimous support on these bills so that we can provide some form of relief for the citizens and businesses of the City of Superior. This is a very trying time. This is not enough to ultimately get us through, but we need to be part of a local, state, and federal government response to really an unprecedented crisis in modern times. Before I open it up for questions, Jason, do you have anything to add? No. Before I open it up for questions, I just thought, as long as you're here, I should give you a report on where we are in COVID-19 cases. I'm sure you have access to this information. But to put it in summary, we've had 7 confirmed cases. Those are since the beginning of the crisis. 7 people have tested positive in Douglas County, and there have been 4 cases that were listed as probable. And what this means is they have exposure to people with that have tested positive, and they are exhibiting symptoms to the point that Douglas County Public Health has asked them to be quarantined. There have been 9 additional suspect cases that had contact to positive cases. None have been hospitalized nor died. We have had 342 negative tests in Douglas County. 57 cases have been closed, as in they had people that have had close contacts with people that were suspected or did have the virus, and they have completed their quarantine without any symptoms. And finally, my favorite number, 10 are recovered. Of the 11 people that either were confirmed or strongly suspected have the virus, 10 have completed their quarantine and have no symptoms according to the CDC's guidelines and have left quarantine, meaning we only have one real potential case of coronavirus remaining in Douglas County. This is all very, very good news for northern Wisconsin, but it does not mean that this crisis is over. You're starting to hear a lot of language that the state of Wisconsin is flattening the curve. That is true. That is especially true. There is no more curve in Douglas County. That we can very confidently say that. But that does not mean that now is necessarily the time to lift all restrictions. We want to make sure that we eradicate this virus as effectively as possible, and we want to make sure that we have adequate testing in northern Wisconsin so that we can monitor the course of the virus and prevent further outbreak and ensure that Douglas County Public Health has all the tools that they need to track the crisis as it continues to unfold. The point is, the end is possibly in sight. We don't know exactly when that will be, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel. We are getting through this. The measures that we have taken, the sacrifices that we have asked of citizens and businesses are working. And they are saving lives. There are people that may have died of this in our own community that are alive because of the measures that everybody in this community has taken. So for that, I want to thank the people of Superior and the people of broader Douglas County, including our neighbors in surrounding Wisconsin counties and the city of Duluth and St. Louis County. All right, are there any questions?
First up, just tell us how you're feeling, basically seeing the city that you serve dealing with these type of impacts from this virus.
It's sobering and stressful for sure. The city of Superior, as we know, has been through a number of crises, but none have been certainly none as long as this or as wide-ranging in scope, where nearly every single citizen has felt the impact. It is very difficult to watch people that felt secure in their personal and economic situation be very, very unsure or face very real catastrophic crisis in their lives. And those stories are told hundreds and hundreds of times throughout the city. So this is a very, very stressful time for me, for the staff of the city of Superior, for all of the elected leadership of northern Wisconsin, but especially people living their lives. I do have to say, I have a great deal of pride for how the citizens of Superior are reacting. I know that it's scary. I know that it causes stress, sometimes even panic, and plenty of people have made poor choices, but the vast majority of our citizens have fully complied and have taken this crisis very seriously, and those actions have protected this community. So I'm grateful and proud for the way the city's handling it, but it's still very concerning and a very stressful time.
Okay, and some of the funding is being used, like you said, for homeless people who need to be isolated. Where are they going to be isolated? Do you have those details?
Area hotels.
Right.
Want to name them?
Don't have names.
Yeah, okay. We on one of our emergency conference calls a week or two ago, I know Douglas County Health and Human Services was working with area hotels on agreements to house our homeless population. We had a lot of great cooperation from those businesses, and they were working on a plan to house them at many hotels across the city. So any hotel will do as long as they can stay in the room. I would point out that when a person is isolated, particularly under the recommendation or orders of public health, they do get support and service in there so that they have food and medicine and toiletries that they need. So, but as you know, to put a person up in a hotel for weeks at a time is expensive.
Okay, and you were mentioning that the nonprofits, they need to be CDBG eligible. Like, what are those requirements? What is the eligibility?
There are many. Do you want to try to sum them up? Including the special.
I think that probably the biggest guideline is low to moderate income. Who is our clientele? Or domestic violence. Those are the types of clients that we serve. Anywhere from CASDA, which everybody's familiar with, Harbor House, Northwest Community Services, the Housing Authority. Those are the types of clients in that group that we would be looking to fund based on any type of need and being affected by this pandemic.
I would just add that this particular allocation comes with extra requirements that it is for dealing with the coronavirus epidemic. And so this fund will have a couple extra strings attached. Part of the reason we're not prepared to submit this particular part of the package next week is still sorting out all those requirements. And this is a program that has to be designed and prepared for implementation.
Okay, and speaking of all of this funding, like obviously it's only so economic relief in the meantime?
Quite frankly, it's only going to go so far for most businesses, and I hope that it helps. We're looking to make sure that it is going to provide meaningful relief to the people that are applying for it, because this does come at a consequence for the City of Superior's finances. And so we don't expect it to go very far. This is a Band-Aid on a very large open wound for most businesses. But we can't do nothing. We have to do something. And so despite the very high cost, we hope that part of the reason I wanted to share the good news about where we are in the stage of this crisis is we do hope for a responsible but speedy end. We want to make sure that we don't exacerbate the crisis, that we don't extend it longer, but we are hopeful that it does have a finish line here soon enough that businesses can recover in and of themselves. We just want to help them while it's dark.
Okay, you just mentioned, you're hopeful, but talk about or give us some words of encouragement or what message you have for the people of Superior and Douglas County dealing with what's going on right now. You're
saving lives. This is the sacrifices that you are making are not politics. They're not an overreaction to a scary crisis that's happening somewhere else. This has affected people in our community. It has made them very sick, but nobody's died. Nobody's been hospitalized in this community, and that's because of the actual sacrifices. So when a business owner or a person that's unemployed, been laid off, a person that's losing income, that doesn't know where that next rent payment comes from, the only way that I can encourage them is to first say, the end of this will come. We will recover. You will achieve stability in your personal life and in your business again. We are going to do everything we can to support that. But in the meantime, know that there are people that will still be alive in this community, that will still be healthy because of what you've done. It's hard to put a price on that, but the actions that everybody has taken have had real and positive consequences. This has taken a community-wide effort, and it has worked. So I wish I could be more hopeful. I wish I could be more inspiring. There is no sugarcoating the fact that this is very, very hard for a lot of people, but what they've done has mattered.
Okay, and I know you said you're working out the details, but how can people apply for this funding that you're offering them?
What we're going to do is the programs that we're proposing on Tuesday, if the council approves them on Tuesday or whenever they approve them, we will have an application process. We will post that on our planning department website. We'll do a little bit of publicity around that. We're going to use a lot of business advocacy groups like the Chamber, the Business Improvement District, the Tavern League of Douglas County to educate their own members about how to apply. So we'll be working closely with the leaders of those organizations. And then they'll be able to fill out an application, submit it to our staff who will review it for to make sure that the applicant and the application meet the requirements of the program, and then we will be issuing approvals very quickly after we start to get them. The one thing I would say, it will be first come, first serve. The first qualified applicants that make their applications will receive funding, and once this funding is exhausted, the program will end. Any other questions? Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Jason. Well done.